W5FC. When is Skynet?
I don't know.
Does Charlie know?
Always 9 p.m. Saturday on 146.88. Duh.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we start Skynet? This is in 5BB. Okay, this is in 5BB. Bill, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. And I'll be your net control for this session of the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, human spaceflight, and space in general. The net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break in your call sign. Is there currently any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without directions from your net control in 5BB. And stations are reminded to identify at the end of your transmissions. That way we know you're finished talking and we'll keep the FCC happy. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are possible using a W5FC-R station identification or Echolink node 37247. I am watching Echolink, and the madness has already started over there on the text on Echolink. So if some station on Echolink wants to get my attention, send a whole bunch of asterisk or something else, and maybe I'll see you. Later we'll have some Echolink check-ins. After the RF check-ins. Tonight's topics: astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org. That's whiskey5 for friedchicken.org. Right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This is in 5BB with Skynet. The net is 90 minutes long, structured in several parts, which I'll go through very quickly. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening by the net control station. What's up? Space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches this week, recent astronomical discoveries, and if we have time, visible satellite passages over the next few days, and astronomical questions and answers, followed by 73. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So now let's start. First, let's do check-ins with low power, or actually short time check-ins Are there any short-time check-ins? If so, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is N5BB, Skynet, looking for short-time check-ins.
KG5DB, Mobile, Louisville, exit 455, Bravo. Kilo India 5, November Oscar November, Logan, Mobile in Richardson.
K5FCY, Wolf City, Fuzzy.
Okay, I recognize AG5DB, Peter, Mobile, on his way back up to Norman. It's very good talking to you tonight, Peter, and very good talking to you several years ago when we were on the way to see the eclipse up there. And Logan, give me the first part of your call. Is it KE5NON?
That would be KI5, Kilo India 5, November Oscar November.
That sounds better. KI5NON, thank you very much, Logan. And Fuzzy, is it Kilo 5, Foxtrot Charlie Yankee? Is that correct, Fuzzy?
Negative. It's Kilo 5, Foxtrot Zulu Yankee, K5FZY.
I'm sorry I mangled your call, Fuzzy. K5FZY. Well, I can see why you're fuzzy, because your call sign is FZY. Very good. Out there in Wolf City. Very good. Do we have any other short-time check-ins? If so, please come now. This is Skynet, N5BB, Net Control.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot Romeo. Jacob, Farmers Branch, no traffic, short time.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey John in Coppell.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo Lima, Bill Farmers Branch.
Okay, let's pause there. I recognize KG5 UFR Jacob. K5 JDW John, you probably heard me talking to Peter there earlier, and then now he's on the way back up to Norman. And KF5 ZBL Bill. Do we have any other short-time check-ins? Short-time check-ins. This is N5BB. Okay, do any of these short-time check-ins have any news items or any other thing to bring to the net before they leave? This is N5BB.
K5FCY, I have to admit, just trying to roaming around, trying to find stations far, far away that I could talk to. Y'all are about 60 miles.
Yes, sir. Well, very good there, Fuzzy. Well, we talk about astronomy things, so it's not just it's mostly a one-way thing where there's presentations and you listen to them. So that's most of what goes on in this net. But we thank you for appearing here. Okay, if there's no other questions, let me ask one more time. Are there any comments or questions or any other news items from the short-time stations before we move on? This is N5BB. And Peter's definitely short time because he's headed north into to Norman, Oklahoma, so he's going to lose us before too long. Okay, so now let's go to general RF check-ins. We'll do Echolink later. So for general RF check-ins, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. This is Skynet, N5BB, over.
Kilo Golf 5, uniform, Kilo uniform. David, Mesquite.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu, Whiskey, J, near Weatherford.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, in Dallas.
Kilo 5, Golf, Lima, Delta, Randy, Rowlett.
Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas. Hi, Peter. Happy travels.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
This is Kilo India 5 Golf Romeo Hotel. I like being after Chaz. Melissa, Northeast Dallas.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor and Lima, James and Carrollton.
Okay, let's pause there. It's a long run, so I recognize KG5UKU, David, KG5BZW, Jay, NT5TM, Tony, and by the way, Tony, Bob, KG5HGU was on here about an hour ago looking for you. Just wanted to say that he was over in your neighborhood, I think, earlier today. Let's see. And then K5GLD, Randy. AA5AH, Robert. W5GUS, Gus, who was with me, and Tom and another ham that talked to Peter, AG5DB, when we were on the way up to see an eclipse in Missouri several years ago. WB5OZL, Brenda. KF5JHA, Chaz. KF5GRH, Melissa. KE5ICX, that was in the car too, going to see the eclipse, Tom. And KG5WVL, James. Do we have any other RF check-ins for Skynet? This is in 5BB, net controller.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
And I recognize KG5APL. Do we have any other RF check-ins before we move on to Echolink? Any other RF check-ins to Skynet? This is in 5BB.
November 5, Oscar X-Ray Yankee.
Okay, please remember to give your call sign, name, and location there. Go ahead, OXY.
This is Timothy in Bedford, N50XY.
Very good, Timothy, for everybody's benefit, so they hear who you are. I recognize KG5APL, Patrick, and N50XY, Timothy. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet via RF? If so, please come with your call sign, name, and location. Okay, now let's go to Echolink. Let's see. If anybody wants to check in on Echolink, give me some text over there, because I see JJ has left a point. So JJ, do you want to check in on voice or text? JJ's in listen-only mode. Philip, KI5KTZ, is checking in. Hi, Philip. Let's see if there's anybody else. Dave, WD8AJQ. That's a new call sign for me. Dave, are you just listening in, or do you want to participate? Feel free to come in on Echolink, text or voice, either one. This is in 5BB Net Control. Nothing heard. Maybe Dave really isn't there. Huey, KFI-PLL. Hello, Huey. Do you want to participate? If so, please come in on text or voice on Echolink. This is in 5BB. Go ahead, Huey. Maybe Huey is no longer there. Let's see. We got JJ. We got Philip. Clay, N5OF, it just popped up. Hey, Clay. Do you want to log in here on text or voice to Skynet? This is N5BB.
Evening to all. This is N5OF, Clay in the Jeep. Nice to be here.
Very good, Clay. I recognize you. Do we have any other stations on any mode, Echolink or RF, that would like to check into Skynet? If so, please come now with your call sign, name, and location. This is N5BB. Net Control. We're getting a nice long delay.
Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo, Lee in Mansfield.
Okay, please check me here, Lee. Was it Kilo Echo 5, Peter Oscar Echo, is that correct?
That is correct. Kilo Echo 5, Papa Oscar Echo.
We've got you, Lee. Thank you very much for checking in. Do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB, Net Control. Oh, groan. Chaz is talking about the cow that nearly jumped over the moon. It had utter failure. Oh my. Okay, let's move forward then. With the next section of the net, let's look for general announcements. Does anybody have any announcements about ham, astronomy, space, or any other thing of interest, general interest to license hams? Anything of interest to amateur radio operators? This is N5BB. Please come with your call sign only.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
NT5TM. Go ahead, Tony.
Good evening, Bill. Well, I have now learned from the helpful pronunciation guide at the very start of the film that apparently the title of tonight's Afterglow movie is pronounced something like Nemophrenia. I'm not really sure what it's about. It seems to be about virtual reality making people crazy. Perhaps the viewers, perhaps the cast of the film, I'm not sure which. But we'll be talking about it tonight at 10:30 right here on this repeater. And please remember that this is an exciting night. We have the Afterglow movie, then an extra hour of sleep, and then tomorrow at 7 p.m. we have the meeting on the air, followed by the Races Training Net at 8. And there's an MCOM 101 net this Monday at 7. We'll probably be talking about getting ready for Turkey Trot and the Dallas Marathon and other awesome, cool stuff. So, fun tonight. Hope to hear you on the air, NT5TM. Unless the virtual reality drives you crazy, in which case you should probably seek help.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. Yes, if you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, set your clock back to 2. And only do it once. You don't want a Groundhog Day kind of event where it keeps on getting to 3 and you keep on setting your clock back to 2 and you just, no. You do it one time only. You fall back in the fall. If you're not going to be up at 3 a.m., then you can do that before you go to bed or when you get up. Better to do it before you go to bed so you aren't confused when you wake up in the morning. Or your alarm doesn't go off at a weird time. Okay, does anybody have any questions about Tony's items? Or do we have any other news items or announcements? This is N5BB, Skynet. I have a news item, and I didn't mention it on TechNet because I only discovered it within the past hour. November the 9th, which is Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, November the 9th, is, rim shot and drum roll please, Hedy Lamarr Day. That's right. The famous actress Hedy Lamarr, who also was the co-inventor of spread spectrum communications during World War II. A very wild story. And Hedy Lamarr Day will be this coming Tuesday, November the 9th. And there will be a special event station, N9H, November 9H, H for Hedy. And there will be a Echolink conference server, ROC-HAM, number 531091. That's ROC-HAM, number 531091. I discovered that because it was visible on the starting page for QRZ tonight. I just happened to see it. So, they're going to be on the air starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 1700 UTC. This is regular time, standard time, this coming Tuesday. And they'll be operating, I don't know what frequencies. Let's see. So it's probably somewhere on this on the news item from QRZ. Anyway, Hedy Lamarr Day, N9H, September the 9th. Look it up. And remember that famous actress who was born on November the 9th. That was her birthday. And she passed away in, I think it was 1987. I'm not sure the exact year. Okay. Do we have any other news items before we move ahead? This is N5BB, Skynet. And JJ is reporting that it's Headley bringing up a trope from a particular Mel Brooks movie that was very, very funny. Very, very funny. Okay, let's move forward now before Chaz finds something to say about Hedy Lamarr. AMSAT, the Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 2 local nets available here on most Tuesdays, except for the first Tuesday of the month. There is a net starting at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88. And at 9 p.m. on Wednesdays, there's a similar net on the Arlington 147.14 megahertz repeater. And the PL tone is 110.9 for either one. And they both talk about satellites and things involving AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group. AMSAT recently, I'm trying to remember, I think it was last Saturday, had their big yearly event, but it was virtual. And I listened into the first part of it before I had to go do some other things. And it was very interesting. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of thoughts about possible high Earth orbit satellites or even geostationary satellites. There is a lot going on in the world of amateur satellites. And a lot of it's occurring in North Texas. Some of the development work has occurred in North Texas for the Fox satellites. Okay. Then we have a lot of nets on this repeater. On Mondays, there's just a whole bunch of nets on different weeks. The 4th week, we have GeekNet, and if there is a 5th net, Surprise Net. But there's other stuff going on other Mondays. On Tuesday, I mentioned the AMSAT net at 8 p.m. here. On Fridays, there's the CERT City Simulation Net, which was 8 p.m. in the summer. Melissa, KF5GRH, what is going to be the time of the CERT City Net starting this next Friday? Over.
It's going to be, we're keeping it at 8 p.m. It seems to be a good time for everybody, so yeah, we're just keeping it at 8 p.m. CERT City Simulation Radio Network. It's fun. Come on out. KI5GRH. Back to you, Bill.
Okay, Melissa. Have you cooked up an emergency, have a disaster for this coming Friday? Over.
We are plotting and planning. I'm thinking in the background here, Tony, maybe N5KRG Kevin, maybe some with Guy. Yeah, plotting and planning to do a simulation of a combination of the Dallas Marathon and the Trot. You know, but at CERT City, so anything could happen. Zombies could jump onto the racetrack. You never know. It's CERT City. KF5GRH. It'd be good practice, though, for anybody who's not familiar with doing public service and wants to give their hand, give it a try. So it'll be a lot of fun. KF5GRH.
Thank you, Melissa. Remember, this is Skynet, so there could be a rogue satellite that deorbits and comes right in to Dallas. Or there could be a rogue asteroid that misses our radar defenses and comes right in and crashes right in Dealey Plaza. Anything can happen, as certain people thought was going to happen here a few days ago in Dealey Plaza, but I'm not going to get into that. So anyway, very good. That's on Friday nights at 8 p.m., CERT City Simulation Net. Saturday nights, we have TechNet at 7 p.m. and Skynet at 8 p.m., and the Afterglow Net at 10:30. So, Tom, KE5ICX, you want to tell us what's going to go on tonight at 10:30 p.m. on Afterglow. What kind of weird things are we going to be talking about? Over.
Well, thank you, Bill. This is KE5ICX. Here's my highly accurate review or synopsis of the movie. The director looked at the script and thumbed through over 100 blank pages. He then turned to the writer, who was filling out a crossword puzzle. The writer broke his silence. Do you know a 12-letter word for stupid? The director answered with a snarl, shouting, simple-minded. Oh, good choice, he said. Speaking of simple-minded, how do you expect me to direct this movie with a blank script? The writer smiled and gave his answer. It's simple. You need only have to find a group of actors who can improvise the script. The basic idea is blurring the lines of reality and virtual reality. It's easy. Think of Second Life, only using real money and mad investors. The director thought for a moment, but realized placing the writer in a wood chipper would cause a huge mess, not to mention the loud shrieks of pain as the disassembly process took its toll on the feckless writer. However, he did allow himself a bit of a grin, thinking of how it just might play out. Almost immediately, an actor appeared unannounced and began his audition. I would like to show my improvisational skills. Here I'm playing an unemployed actor attempting to get a job, he continued. Please, sir, I'll wash your car, make you dinner, and eliminate debt collectors. The director interrupted. Can you show me how you might assassinate someone and hide the evidence? Join us for the Afterglow movie, Nemophrenia. It's a word. I'm not sure it's a real word, but it is a word. And it actually has a definition if you go and look for it on the interwebs. That's tonight. It's actually kind of an interesting movie. We'll be talking about it at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX.
This is N5BB. Well, I was pretty busy today. I did watch the first part of it. It looked pretty scary to me, so I didn't continue. Scary in the sense of what could possibly go wrong. Dum-da-dum-dum. Okay, so that's what's going on at 10:30 this evening, the Afterglow net. And we talked about AMSAT nets, and we talked about Cert City, and I think that's about it. Oh, every evening at 6:30 p.m., except for the first Tuesday of the month, but every other evening at 6:30 p.m., local Central Time, we have the National Traffic System Training Net on this repeater. And at 10:30 p.m., that same net, local time, is on the Irving 146.72 megahertz repeater. All are welcome to check into any of these nets. You do not need to be a member of any club or group to check into these nets we've mentioned. We've gone through Afterglow. So next, let's look for any additional check-ins or comments. Any additional check-ins or comments? This is N5BB. And Joe, before I go to RF, Joe, KG5ZMG, do you want to check in on Echolink?
Golf 5, Zulu Mike, Twin Arlington. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you fine, Joe. Thank you very much for checking in. And that looks like the only news station over there. So now, do we have any RF check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. Okay, now that we're through the preliminaries, it's ready for the meat of the meeting. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas event. Take it away, Chaz, KF5JHA. This is N5BB, Skynet.
So all the other stuff was appetizer, I guess? Okay.
The next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting will be held on Friday, November the 19th at 7:30 p.m. It's usually the fourth Friday of the month, but in November it's the third Friday because that way it's before Thanksgiving and not after Thanksgiving. But okay, anyway, it'll be on Zoom. The featured event will be a swap meet. Task Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting, usually a week ahead of time. Saturday night public observing sessions have been placed on hold again because of COVID. One of the reasons why Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there'd be an opportunity to have live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions that are also held on Saturday nights, but that's not happening right now. If you want to find out the up-to-date information about the task activities, go to their website, texasastro.org, and that's where you can find those details. This is KF5JJ, back to N5BB.
Very good there. I appreciate it, Chaz. Hey, AG5DB, Peter, who lives in Norman, Oklahoma, was passing through this area earlier, and he asked if any of our group went up to the Red River parties up there, the viewing parties. Do you or other people from TAS go up there in 5BB?
Well, as for me, I have not been to that one. The one that I've been here since I've lived here in Texas is the Texas Star Party down near Fort Davis, but I haven't been to the other ones in this area. When I lived in Ohio, went to several different ones that were in the state of Ohio. So anyway, KF5JJ, back to net control.
Okay. Is anybody that's listening here gone to the, I think it's the Red River or something, star parties? Is anybody on the net right now been to one of those in 5BB? Well, of course, Kelly isn't here tonight, and she'd probably be the most likely, so. Okay, or maybe Billy, and Billy isn't here either. Okay, so next. Do we have any other check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. By the way, we have 25 check-ins so far. Next, unfortunately, you have to listen to me for a while. National Space Society events and activities. I happen to be the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. And the next North Texas chapter NSS meeting will be on Sunday afternoon, November the 14th. Our normal meeting location, without COVID, is at Spring Creek Barbecue in Irving on Highway 183. But because of COVID, our meeting will be virtual. We are trying to get a scientist involved with the double asteroid redirection test. That's right, DART, the mission for the meeting. But they haven't confirmed yet. We're still trying. We have a NASA person lined up for December. So a lot of interesting things happening with National Space Society, involving some things that involve asteroids and other things that are both astronomy and human spacecraft that humans designed at least. If anybody would like to participate in any of these National Space Society meetings as a guest, I will be glad to give you a guest invite to these WebEx events. You can send a request to me at N5BB at ARRL.net. That's November 5 Bravo Bravo at ARRL.net. Or you can use my other email address, space@byron.net. SPACEE at BYROM.net. The National Space Society of North Texas has a website at http NSS of NT. That's NSSOFNT.org. We're in the process of changing it over to a different server, and so it may be kind of old and updated before we get it over to the new server and have time to update it with new information. We also have an active Facebook page. You can look for National Space Society of North Texas, and we participate on Twitter. Does anybody have any questions about the National Space Society, or do we have any late check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. Nothing heard. Now, unfortunately, you get to listen to me more. It's time for the discussion topic of the evening. And I'm going to talk about the Astro2020 Decadal Survey. This is a big deal, and the report came out on Thursday, November the 4th, and it was so big, I've got two big long blurbs, one of them from physicsworld.com, and the other one from the where was it from? Oh, from the New York Times, of course, from the New York Times. And so I'm going to kind of skip between the two. So here's what the New York Times says about this. A new 10-year plan for the cosmos. On astronomers' wish list for the next decade, 2 giant telescopes and a space telescope to search for life and habitable worlds beyond Earth. This is an article by Dennis Overby for the New York Times, November 4th issue. N5BB, Skynet. American astronomers on Thursday called for the nation to invest in a new generation of extremely large, multi-billion-dollar telescopes that would be bigger than any now on Earth or orbiting in space. The investment would entail bailing out and combining the efforts of 2 rival projects, the giant Magellan telescope and the 30-meter telescope. That's right, 30 meters. Once completed, these telescopes, with primary gathering meters 25 and 30 meters in diameter, would be about 100 times more sensitive than any telescope currently in operation. They would allow astronomers to peer deep into the cores of distant galaxies, where monstrous black holes roam and sputter energy, to investigate mysteries like dark matter and dark energy, and to study planets around stars other than the sun. Perhaps more important, they could raise new questions about the nature of the universe. But astronomers have struggled for years to raise enough money to complete their dream. In the new proposal, the National Science Foundation would provide $1.6 billion to finish both of these large telescope projects and then help run them. You got to remember, if you don't have money to run them, it's kind of useless. It's part of a new program called the United States Extremely Large Telescope. This is N5BB, Skynet. On Thursday, the astronomers also urged NASA to embark on a new Grand Observatory mission and technology maturation program that would develop a series of astrophysics spacecraft over the next 20 to 30 years. The first would be an optical telescope bigger than the Hubble Space Telescope and capable of finding and studying Earth-like planets, potentially habitable exo-Earths, and the nearby cosmos. Only NASA could accomplish this, the astronomers said, noting it could be ready in 2040 and would cost $11 billion. Those two recommendations were the biggest in a long-awaited 614-page report titled Pathways to Discovery in Astronomy and Astrophysics for the 2020s, released by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine on Thursday. Every 10 years for the last 70 years, the Academy has sponsored a survey of the astronomical community in order to set priorities for big-ticket items over the next decade. The Decadal survey, that's D-E-C-A-D-A-L survey, as it is known, commands the attention of Congress, NASA, National Science Foundation, and Department of Energy. And, of course, Skynet. This is in 5BB. I'm going to skip down, because it's a very long article, to the last part of this article. They're talking about two scopes in different hemispheres with radically different designs. And this would make them perfectly suited for complementary interrogations of the cosmos. To imagine the U.S. would not have access to that is unthinkable. Got to remember, the people that pay the money have most of the access. Major challenges await. The giant Magellan team has already broken ground in Chile. The progress on the 30-meter telescope has been stymied by protests and blockades by native Hawaiian and other groups in Hawaii. An alternative site has been designated on La Palma on the Canary Islands. Astronomers hope the stars will align, for their audacious vision, given the current emphasis on infrastructure and rising science budgets. But they are haunted by a history of cost overruns, most notably the James Webb Space Telescopes, which will finally launch in December, cross your fingers, after years of delay and with a final price tag of $10 billion. Looming over this is JWST, the James Webb Space Telescope. The whole program will be predicated on its success, said Michael Turner, cosmologist now with the Kavli Foundation in Los Angeles. Fingers crossed. So those are the comments. I skipped over a bunch from the New York Times. Let me quickly give you some of the comments from the physics today. This is in 5BB Skynet. I'll skip over most of it here because it's a very even longer article. This is from Physics World, not Physics Today, physicsworld.com. Astro2020 Decadal survey calls for great observatory to succeed Hubble. The highlights of the long-awaited Astro2020 Decadal survey, which will define the course of astronomy and astrophysics in the U.S. and beyond over the next 10 years, by Michael Banks for Physics World. An influential panel of astrophysics and astronomers has called for a major space-based observatory to be launched in the mid-2040s. The significant new mission would observe extrasolar planets that are 10 billion times fainter than the stars they orbit and provide spectrographic data about the planets. This is part of, again, this Astro2020 document. Dubbed the real successor to the aging Hubble Space Telescope, the Space Observatory would contain a mirror with a diameter of at least 6 meters and cost around $11 billion if there's no overruns. And they've got to make sure they do independent reviews so they make sure they don't run into cost overruns and other problems. And it was co-authored by Robert McKennicut from the University of Arizona and Texas A&M University. He was one of the co-chairs. The new report broadly identifies 3 priority scientific areas for investment over the next decade. This is N5BB. One is to identify and characterize Earth-sized planets outside the solar system with the goal of imaging potentially habitable worlds. That's right, imaging exo-Earths. A second goal is to probe the nature of black holes and neutron stars. The third area is understanding what happened in the earliest moments of the universe and to improve our understanding of the origins and evolution of galaxies. The main goal of the proposed observatory would be to search for biosignatures of some 25 habitable zone planets. So the problem is the James Webb Space Telescope, which hopefully will be launched in December, is really an infrared and far infrared observatory. It's not a visible light telescope. So the James Webb Telescope does not directly replace Hubble. So that's the reason they're interested in a new thing to replace Hubble and do even more. And I'm going to skip over most of this because it's just too long. But let me talk about the end here, the very last couple of paragraphs. They're talking about a call for graduate and doctoral fellowships to improve diversity and inclusivity, etc. The report sets out a clear and ambitious vision for the coming decade, a view that is shared by some other people. The most exciting breakthroughs in all of science are occurring in astrophysics and the life and biological sciences. Both are transforming our understanding of our place in it all. Both are powered by instrumentation that's enabling us to be able to explore these two worlds that have long been beyond our reach. What a great time to be a scientist. And that ends my comments. Does anybody have any comments, questions about that article, or 2 articles, or any late check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. Okay, so if we can live long enough, I have to say that because I'm 68 years old. If we can live long enough in the 2040s, there may be some amazing space telescopes. And long before that, in the next decade, some really amazing ground-based telescopes. They may be fully funded, too. Next, it's time for What's Up with our own Chaz, KF5JHA. Take it away, Chaz. This is N5BB, Skynet.
Thank you, Bill. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics. I'm in charge of the astrophysics lab and geology lab at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we do call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Slide Master, slide number 2, please. The moon is new on November the 4th, or it was, I should say. So the current phase of the moon is a waxing crescent. On November the 5th, the moon was at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth. On November the 11th, the moon will be at first quarter phase. On November the 19th, the moon will be full and there will be a lunar eclipse. More about the lunar eclipse in a few moments. On November the 20th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth. And on November the 27th, the moon is at its third quarter phase. Slide number 3, please. In the southwestern evening sky, that's tomorrow night on November the 7th, the moon and Venus are in conjunction. Paintings, drawings, jewelry have all depicted conjunctions of the moon and Venus. kind of interesting to see. Slide number 4, please. In the early morning southeastern sky on November the 10th, Mercury and Mars will be less than 1 degree apart in this conjunction. And just a few hours later, slide number 5, in the evening sky on November the 10th, the moon will be in between Jupiter and Saturn in the southwestern sky. Slide number 6, please. On the night of November 17th, 18th, the Leonid meteor shower peaks with between a few dozen meteors per hour, but could have as many as 400 meteors per hour. The Leonid meteor shower is famous for having meteor storms every 33 years. The last meteor storm was in the year 2000. The problem with watching the Leonid meteor shower this year is that the moon is close to being full, which will prevent the fainter meteors in the meteor shower from being seen. Slide number 7, please. Early morning on Friday, November the 19th. That's less than 2 weeks away. There will be a partial lunar eclipse. Actually, this lunar eclipse is almost a total lunar eclipse. 97% of the moon will travel into the Earth's umbral shadow. So for most people, they'll see it as a total lunar eclipse. The moon will enter the lighter part of the Earth's shadow, called the penumbra, at 12:02 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's just a couple of minutes after midnight. This will be difficult for most people to see this part of the eclipse. But at 1:19 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon begins to enter the darker part of the Earth's shadow, called the umbra. That will be easy to see. At 3:04 a.m. Central Standard Time, a little bit over 97% of the moon will be inside of the umbra, and this will be the middle of the eclipse and also the eclipse maximum. At 4:47 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon leaves the umbral shadow of the Earth, and at 6:04 Central Standard Time, the moon leaves the penumbral shadow. But the last part of the eclipse won't be visible from Dallas Metroplex because the sun will be rising and the moon will be setting. Slide number 8, please. The meteor shower on the night of November 20th, 21st, the Alpha Monoceroids, will peak with a few, but at times more than 100 meteors per hour of observing. But once again, the moon phase is close to full, so the fainter meteors will not be able to be observed. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 9, please. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will happen on November the 19th at 7:30 p.m. It'll be held on Zoom. A featured event will be the Swap Meet. If you want to get information about that or the observing sessions, which are on pause right now because of COVID, then check the TAS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details. Okay, slide number 10, please. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need to fill on any information, what I've said or anything that has been said so far? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question, or someone else here on the net might know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
KI5MKK.
MKK, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I've got a Celestron 130 millimeter telescope, and curious if there's a way to, or if there are aftermarket mounts that I could use for equatorial. I'm starting to get into things like astrophotography and would like to better track. Are there options?
Yeah, you can either buy some new stuff, go to their website, Celestron's website, or if you're looking to buy something used, I would suggest a website called Astromart, and you could go there to find a mount for what you would need. There's several different options, but of course you'll need to get something that will track. An equatorial mount will work very well. I'm not sure if your telescope is designed to track if it's an alt-azimuth mount or not. You'd need to find out that information by going to the Celestron website. Did that help you?
It does. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. I hope you can get out there and do some observing. We've had a couple of clear nights recently, so that's kind of awesome. Okay, slide number 11, please. So as the moon wanes at the end of October and the beginning of November, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next week, well, actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet here in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control N5BB, the guy who lives across the street from his house. You can have him explain that to all of you.
Thank you, Chaz. This is N5BB, net control for Skynet. Yes, I do. And because I'm on a corner with a hospital across the street and a lot of street lights, including some new LED street lights, the viewing at my house, or the rental house I'm living in, is horrible. It's like there's a horrible glare coming from the corner. Anyway, I noticed KI5NKK, new station to me. Please, what's your name and location? This is N5BB, net control for Skynet.
Yes, this is Kilo India 5, Mike Kilo Kilo, Donald from Flower Mountain.
Very good, Donald. I heard it wrong. KI5MKK. Thank you very much, Donald. Welcome to Skynet. You're welcome to come in here any Saturday evening at 9 o'clock. And before this net at 7 o'clock, there's TechNet, also on Saturday nights. And at 10:30 this evening, we have Afterglow, where we talk about a movie, usually a science fiction movie. So there's a lot going on over here on Saturday night. Okay, do we have any other check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB net control.
Alpha Foxtrot 5, Alpha X-Ray.
Okay, I believe that your audio is a little weak. I think that was Alpha Fox 5, Alpha X-Ray. Did I get it correct? And if so, what's your name and location, please?
My name is Matt, and I'm in East Dallas.
Thank you, Matt. I recognize AF5AX. Okay, do we have any other late check-ins? This is N5BB, Skynet. Nothing heard. Moving forward. Now it's time, and by the way, I'm looking at Echolink, and nobody new has come in over there. So it's time for space exploration and space history. Kelly, K5KTX, is away doing an astronomy thing. And Brenda, WE5OZL, has agreed to step in. Take it away, Brenda. This is N5BB and Skynet.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. Well, Kelly sent in her report, and I am reading it. So she wrote this, not me, but I'll be happy to read this for her. Okay, slide 1, NASA report. Nova C. In late 2022, NASA will send an ice mining experiment attached to a robotic lander to the lunar South Pole on a ridge not far from Shackleton Crater, a location engineers and scientists have assessed for months. NASA and Intuitive Machines, an agency partner for commercial moon deliveries, announced the location selection November 3rd. NASA data from spacecraft orbiting the moon indicate this location, referred to as the Shackleton Connecting Ridge, could have ice below the surface. The area receives sufficient sunlight to power a lander for roughly a 10-day mission, while also providing a clear line of sight to Earth for constant communications. It also is close to a small crater, which is ideal for a robotic excursion. To select its final landing location, experts from NASA, Arizona State University, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, Nokia, and Intuitive Machines created ice mining maps of the lunar surface using the lunar remote sensing data. Slide 2. These conditions offer the best chance of success for the 3 technology demonstrations aboard. This includes the NASA-funded Polar Resources Ice Mining Experiment 1, Prime 1, which consists of a drill paired with a mass spectrometer, a 4G LTE communications network developed by Nokia of America Corporation, and Micronova, a deployable hopper robot developed by Intuitive Machines. Prime 1 is permanently attached to Intuitive Machines' Nova C lander. Slide 3. After landing, the Prime 1 drill, known as the Regolith Ice Drill for exploring new terrain, Trident, will attempt to drill up to 3 feet, extract lunar soil called regolith, and deposit it on the surface for water analysis. Prime 1's other instrument, the mass spectrometer observing lunar operations, M-SOLO, will measure volatile gases that readily escape from the material excavated by Trident. Prime 1 will be the first demonstration of finding and extracting resources on the moon. Advancing these types of technologies are critical to establishing a robust, long-term presence in deep space, including at the moon, as part of the agency's Artemis missions. Simply operating and drilling into the tough lunar surface will provide valuable insight to engineers for future lunar missions, such as the Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover, or VIPER mission, which is slated to land at the lunar South Pole in late 2023. Slide 4, please. While Prime 1 will investigate the resources below the lunar surface, Nokia will set out to test its space-hardened 4G LTE network. A small rover developed by Lunar Outpost will venture more than a mile away from the Nova C lander and test Nokia's wireless network at various distances. The rover will communicate to a base station located on Nova C, and the lander will communicate data back to Earth. This demonstration could pave the way for a commercial 4G LTE system for mission-critical communications on the lunar surface. This includes communications and even high-definition video streaming from astronauts to base stations, vehicles to base stations, and more. Slide 5, please. Nearby, Intuitive Machines Micronova will aim to deploy to the surface and hop into a nearby crater to acquire pictures and science data before hopping out. It will then send the data back to Nova C. Micronova can carry a 2-pound payload more than 1.5 miles to access lunar craters and enable high-resolution surveying of the lunar surface. This demonstration could help pave the way for additional commercial lunar exploration services. In the future, scientists may have the opportunity to outfit a hopper with their own small science instruments, such as cameras, seismometers, lunar ranging systems, and more. All right, this week in history. Slide 6, please. In 1963, the Arecibo Observatory opened in Puerto Rico. For 50 years, it was home to the world's biggest single-dish radio telescope until July 2016, when it was overtaken by China's 500-meter aperture spherical radio telescope, FAST. Arecibo is perhaps best known to the general public for the role it has played in movies, having appeared in films such as James Bond's GoldenEye in 1995, or television programs such as The X-Files. Arecibo is also popular in science fiction literature because of its importance in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Arecibo has fictitiously picked up intelligent extraterrestrial signals in novels such as Carl Sagan's Contact, 1985, and Mary Doria Russell's The Sparrow, 1985. Following 2 breaks in cables supporting the receiver platform last year, the National Science Foundation stated on November 19, 2020, that it was decommissioning the telescope due to safety concerns. On December 1st, 2020, the main telescope collapsed before controlled demolition could be conducted. Slide number 7. In 2000, Expedition 1 docked with the ISS. The crew of 3, Commander Bill Shepard and flight engineers Yuri Gazinko and Sergei Krikalev, rode aboard the Soyuz TM-31 to begin their stay on the ISS, and since that day, the space station has been continuously inhabited. Expedition 1 marked the beginning of the first permanent off-planet residence for humanity. The new inhabitants of the ISS were extremely busy in their time on the station. Over the course of their 136 days aboard, they were visited by 3 space shuttle missions as well as 2 automated resupply craft. The crew successfully installed a set of the station's solar arrays and the Destiny Laboratory. The mission officially came to an end on March 18, 2001, when the crew boarded the shuttle Discovery, STS-102, and headed for home, but not before turning the station over to Expedition 2. Commander Yuri Yusachev and flight engineers Jim Voss and Susan Helms. Today, on day 7,674, the Expedition 66 astronauts commanded by Thomas Pesquet carry the baton forward. And that was the anniversary of November 2nd. And November 3rd, slide 8, 1957, Sputnik launched the second satellite put into orbit by the, Sputnik 2. It's the second satellite put into orbit by the Soviets in just under a month. The Sputnik 2 was quite different from its predecessor. Instead of launching a simple aluminum sphere, the USSR had created a more complex spacecraft, this time introducing a live passenger. The passenger was a dog named Laika, who became the first Earthling to enter Earth orbit. Laika, whose name means barker in Russian, proved that animals could survive in space and paved the way for human spaceflight. In many ways, Sputnik 2 was more alarming to Americans than Sputnik because it indicated both the Soviet ambition to put a human in orbit and proof of their ability to launch such a complex mission. Sadly, Laika's mission was a one-way trip. The USSR had not yet perfected re-entry technology. Slide number 9. In 1973, Mariner 10 took flight. It was the first spacecraft to visit Mercury, the first spacecraft to use a gravity assist. It used the gravity of Venus to reach Mercury, and with that record, it was also the first spacecraft to visit 2 planets. Getting into orbit around Mercury is a huge challenge and was only achieved in 2011 by the Messenger probe. But some extremely space navigation allowed Mariner 10 to make 3 flybys of Mercury in the early 1970s. Using a gravity assist from Venus, Mariner 10 was placed into an orbit around the Sun that brought it within flyby distance of Mercury in March and September 1974, and then again in March 1975. Such skillful navigation set the stage for the exploration of the outer solar system with multiple gravity assists. November 6th, slide 10, please. 1966, Lunar Orbiter 2 was launched to photograph smooth areas of the lunar surface for selection and verification of safe landing sites for the Surveyor and Apollo missions. The mission successfully returned a total of 609 high-resolution and 208 medium-resolution frames, including a picture of the Copernicus crater. In total, the Lunar Orbiter program consisted of 5 lunar orbiters which returned photography of 99% of the surface of the Moon, near and far side. Mapping of the Moon by the lunar orbiters not only led to success in the Apollo program, but also provided a trove of data about the Moon. In 2000, a team of volunteers began digitizing lunar orbiter data using refurbished tape drives and modern image processing technology. The Lunar Orbiter Image Recovery Project data is now available on the NASA Solar System Research Virtual Institute website. Slide 11, birthdays. October 31st, 1930, Michael Collins. He flew on Gemini 10 and Apollo 11. October 31st, 1949, Terrence Wilcott. STS 68, 79, 89, and 106. November 1st, 1953, Jan Davis. STS 47, 60, and 85. November 2nd, 1944, Jeffrey Hoffman. STS 54D, 35, 46, 61, and 75. November 3rd, 1954, Kevin Chilton. STS 49, 59, and 76. November 5th, 1948, Robert Sinker, STS 61C. November 5th, 1961, Charles Hobaugh, STS 104, 118, and 129. And November 5th, 1961, Alan Poindexter, STS 122 and 131. And November 5th, 1962, Alvin Drew, SCS 118 and 133. That's it. Back to net. This is WB50ZL.
Well, thank you, Brenda. See, Nokia's going to put some spread spectrum technology on the Moon. As I mentioned, developed about 80 years ago by Hedy Lamarr and a collaborator. What a deal. Okay, do we have any questions or comments or any late check-ins to Skynet? This is N5BB. Okay. No new stations on Echolink that haven't checked in on RF. So let's go back to Chaz, KF5JHA. This is N5BB. Take us away with the constellation of the week, Chaz.
Oh, I'm not sure if James had checked in. KG5WVL. He's on Echolink over there. Okay. Slide Masters, slide number 12, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from almost its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week, and we've named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Cepheus, the King. Now, let me refresh you with a myth surrounding Cepheus. Cepheus' wife, Cassiopeia, was a very vain woman. Once she boasted that she was more beautiful than the Nereids, sea nymphs. One of them was the wife of the sea god Poseidon. They angered the sea nymphs and Poseidon, so he sent a sea monster. That's represented by the constellation of Cetus to ravage the coast. In some versions, they say that Cassiopeia bragged that her daughter Andromeda was more beautiful than the sea nymphs. Anyway, Cepheus turned to an oracle to find out how to prevent the utter destruction of his country, and the oracle told him that the only way to please Poseidon was to sacrifice his daughter Andromeda to the monster. desperate to save the country, Cepheus and Cassiopeia did this, leaving their daughter chained to a rock for Cepheus to find. Luckily, the hero, Perseus, came flying by on a Pegasus, the winged horse, and he found the princess, rescued her, killed the monster, and later he married Andromeda. Of course, they lived happily ever after. All 6 of the main characters in the story are constellations. Slide Master, slide number 13. Okay, this is why you've stayed this long on Skynet. I'm sure it's for the jokes. So here we go. They're related to the constellation of the week. What is the king of all tools? The ruler. Oh, I thought that was called when a king and a queen have no children. A receding airline. It looks better in print than it does over the air. The plumpest knight at King Arthur's round table was Circumference. He acquired his size from eating too much pie. It's a math thing. If Billy were here, she could explain it to you. What was King Midas's favorite pet? You know, he had the golden touch. So a golden retriever was his favorite pet. Why was the king so wet? He was the reigning monarch. And the last one in the sequence, once there was a king only 12 inches tall, fill in the rest. He was a lousy king, but made a great ruler. Slide Master, slide number 14, please. Delta Cephei serves as a prototype of a class of stars known as the Cepheid variables. Brighter the star, the longer the period of the variable. So Delta Cepheid's variations of luminosity and spectral type result in the pulsation of the star. The star's spectral type varies from an F5 to a G3 over a period of about 5.36634 days. In other words, 5 days, 8 hours, 47 minutes, and 32 seconds. Yeah, we have it timed down to that much. A Cepheid variable is a pulsating variable that has a definite relationship between its pulsation period and its actual luminosity. This is important because we can calculate its actual luminosity once we've timed the pulsation period. Then we can compare its apparent luminosity, what we see from the Earth, with its actual luminosity, and from this we can determine the distance to that star. Delta Cepheid itself can be computed to have be about 1,000 light years in distance. As a double star, Delta is very easy to split at low power. The fainter member appears to have a slightly different color than the primary being a pale yellow, and the companion appearing to be slightly green or blue-green. What's really interesting is there's no really real green stars, so it's going to be a green color. It reminds me of Alberio and Cygnus. It's not nearly as contrast like Alberio with the 2 stars and Delta Cepheus. They're generally believed to be a true physical pair, even though no orbital motion has been observed, because both stars do share the same proper motion. Cepheid, notable for the fact that due to precession, it will become the pole star in about the year 2000. In 2,000 years, not the year 2000. We've already passed that. So in 2,000 years from now. In a telescope, Cepheid looks white, a faint tinge of yellow color to it, maybe. Another star I want to talk about is Mu Cephei, the Garnet star, so named by Herschel, is noted for its red color. To honor its discoverer, many sources refer to Mu Cephei as Herschel's Garnet star. The star looks noticeably red or orange even in a finder scope, though through the main scope it is reddish-orange in color. It is for a good reason. Mu is perhaps the reddest visible star to the naked eye in the northern latitudes. It is a red supergiant star that's also an irregular variable. In these respects, it's similar to Betelgeuse, or Betelgeuse is how I usually say it, which is also an irregular variable. And remember, not too long ago, we talked about Betelgeuse being a different magnitude. I think that was from a dust cloud. However, Musefi is believed to be much larger than Betelgeuse, which is larger than Mars' orbit, if you put it in the center of our solar system. As Dave Hutchinson writes in the spectrum, it's about 22 light years at 22 astronomical units in diameter. If Mu were dropped into our solar system, it would extend outwards beyond the orbit of Saturn. That's big. Slide Master, slide number 15. IC 1396, that's a catalog number, is the Elephant Trunk Nebula. It is a large emission nebula that is involved with an open cluster lying just south of Herschel's Garnet star. The total integrated visual magnitude of IC 1396 is about 3.5 magnitude, which sounds fairly bright, but it's spread across an area of the sky about 3 degrees in diameter, which means it's relatively low surface brightness. Through the embedded open star cluster, it's easy to see the nebula itself is a challenge to detect visually, requiring very dark transparent skies on large telescopes. Slide number 16, please. NGC 188, Caldwell 1, is a faint star cluster, easily missed, and it's only about 4 degrees from Polaris. It's probably the closest NGC object to the North Star. It resides in an area of the sky that is often overlooked. NGC 188 contains about 150 to 200 stars, but many of them are on the faint side, so going down to 18th magnitude, which is really hard to see unless you have a very large telescope. It also spans a quarter of a degree in the sky, so it's best observed with large aperture and low power telescopes. Slide number 17, please. NGC 40, the Bowtie Nebula, is a planetary nebula so named because of the structures within it resemble the shape of a bow tie. Although some sharp-eyed observers, like Stephen J. O'Meara, have been able to see some structure in the nebula, the actual bow tie shape itself is not apparent visually. It's only brought out by time exposure photographs. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 18. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Cepheus, the King. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has about 73 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then they can usually earn a certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide number 19. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Cepheus, the King. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrowed, and I steal for tonight and every Skynet. Also, at times, use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Next time, I'll take a look at the constellation of Pegasus, the winged horse, another character in that story I talked about. This is KF5, JHA, back to our net control, N5BB.
Thanks, Chaz. We're running late. Hey, Tom, can you really quickly just tell us about the space launch that was delayed until Monday evening? The important launch on Monday evening, and then I want to zip over to Brenda for recent astronomical discoveries. What do you say, Tom? What's going up on Monday evening after some delays in Habibi?
Hey, Bill, and we're running late. Yeah, I'll just tell you that this Falcon 9 launch, overnight, Launch Complex 39A from Kennedy Space Center. The Crew Dragon spacecraft on its 5th flight with astronauts. It'll have Raja Cherry, Thomas Mashburn from the European Space Agency, astronaut Matthias Marr, and NASA mission specialist Kayla Barron will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft to begin a 6-month expedition on the International Space Station. The Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Brenda, WB50ZL, can you give us a quick synopsis of the recent astronomical discoveries? I'm sorry we're running so late, Brenda. Go ahead. This is N5BB.
This is WB50ZL. It might be better to hold it over till next week because it's kind of an interesting article, and I want to do it justice because it's already 10:30, so we're running into afterglow time. So I'll turn it back to you, WB50ZL.
Sounds like a plan, Brenda, and then you've got your next week presentation already set up. So, it's time to close the net. Do we have any last-minute check-ins or comments before I close Skynet? This is N5BB, Net Control.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean and Fort Worth, just checking in.
W5BLT, Bill, W5 Bravo Limo Tango, just checking in.
Kilo India 5 Delta Juliet, Josh and McKinney, just checking in.
Very good. I recognize KB9SOK Sean, W5BLT Bill, and KI5DJJ Josh. That brings it to an even 30 check-ins tonight. I want to thank everybody for participating in Skynet, and let me get to the closing. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking forward for net control stations for this and other nets in the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. If you'd like to try your hand, contact any net control or send an email to nets, that's NETS, at w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net, astronomy in general, on Facebook and Twitter, as well as their audio and visual streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is N5BB, Bill. I'll be closing a net at 10:33 p.m. and returning the repeater to normal amateur use for a few moments before afterglow gets going. 73, everybody. Enjoy this evening discovering the universe. KE5ICX and 5BB. I'm out of here.
All right, thanks, Bill. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we'll be discussing the movie Nemophrenia from 2018. So about 5 minutes from now. Come on back.
Okay, I only watched the first few minutes because I was too busy today, and I'm getting too tired anyway. So I'm out of here. Been talking too long. Thanks, Tom. See you. KE5ICX and 5BB.
All right, Bill. Catch you later. Thanks for doing the net. KE5ICX. Okay, this is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'll be net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. This week's movie that we picked ahead of time is called Nemophrenia. Yes, I know it's a hard word to say, and indeed, I don't know if it's a real word or not. It blurs the lines of virtual reality and reality simply because there's been real research done on the topic that I'm about to discuss. And I don't know if this term is official or not, but here we go. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of what it is. What it will do is we'll go through synopsis of the film. We'll go through the plot, if you're interested in that. We'll talk about characterization, and then if we have time, we'll discuss any special effects or techniques in this film, of which there are many. Let's see here. We have from Everybody Wiki, it says this film is set in the future and explores the ramifications of a condition called nemophrenia that inadvertently makes users mistake the VR experiences, virtual reality experiences, for real ones, and leads to the proliferation of artificial memories, blending the boundaries between reality and fiction. Nemophrenia follows the stories of 3 different generations of nemophrenics and explores how each one deals with the condition. Jeanette is a documentary filmmaker who makes a documentary to raise awareness about the new condition, having discovered her love, Douglas, was a fake memory due to the VR series she experienced. Jeanette's grandson, Nicholas, is developing the next generation of VR technology, but he's caught between his own deals, his company's agenda, and an underground group advocating an all-nemophrenic society. In Robin's time, Nicholas' granddaughter, the whole world is nemophrenic. She is the leading research into shared consciousness through nemophrenia, using a brain-implanted chip, and while battling with a terminal illness, sees a rare opportunity to use her research as a touchstone that could possibly lead humankind to the next evolutionary step. Overall, the film questions our beliefs around the idea of memory, identity, and ultimately our human nature and how it could be affected by this technology. Now, just some brief things since the novelty of this film. Nemophrenia was originally conceived as part of Irini Constantinidou's PhD studies in film, and it constitutes the foundation of her research. An important aspect of the approach to screenwriting in Nemophrenia is the development of a film script through improvisation workshops with the actors. The director believes that realistic dialogue and performances that are achieved through improvisation contribute the intended blurring of the distinction between reality and fiction explored in the film. Irini Constantini-Doe has a PhD in film studies specializing in science fiction films about memory and technology and is based on her first feature film. She has directed and written 4 short films, 2 of which are award-winning and all of which have played in various international film festivals. She's a lecturer in film production at the University of Essex. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and ask for check-ins this evening. I'm going to ask for your call sign, your name, and whether you saw this movie, Nemophrenia, you try and say that, from 2018. You don't have to necessarily seen the film to participate. The topic itself is kind of fascinating in and of itself, and there are plenty of other films that are very similar in that regard. But if you have seen the film, please let us know. So I'll go ahead and take check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and did you see the film Nemophrenia from 2018? Please come now.
W5BLT, W5 bacon, lettuce, tomato. Bill, Garland, have not seen the movie, just checking in.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. Seen most of the movie, watching it now, scratching my head, finding it a little hard to follow. NT5TF.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth. Yes, I seen the movie, I think, or was it VR?
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo, Kane and Richardson, and yes, I saw the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto, and yes, I saw the movie.
Whiskey 5, Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. My grandfather saw the movie, so that must mean I saw it too.
All right, that's not too bad. Let me go ahead and get these checked in. I've got folks checked in. I got W5BLT, Bill, and Garland. Is that right, Garland? Yeah, Garland. He didn't see the movie, but he is checking in. I got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. Yep, you saw it. KB9SOK, Sean, Fort Worth. Yep, you saw it. K5A&E, Kane and Richardson. Yep, you saw it. WE5OZL, Brenda DeSoto. Yep, she saw it. W5EBB, David in Dallas. Yes, he saw it as well. Anyone else would like to check in to the Afterglow Movie Net? Please come out. All right, we will come back later. I'm sure we'll get some additional check-ins later on, but this isn't too bad for a very arts house type of film. So this involves virtual reality, so I'm going to set it up for Bill a little bit since I'm going to go down in order of check-ins. So Bill, I know you didn't see the film, but have you ever seen one of these films or even considered virtual reality versus reality? One film that comes to mind for me was Brainstorm from a few years back. Maybe you saw that, maybe you didn't. What do you think about a motion picture where you're not sure what's real and what's not? Total Recall was one of those, I think, as well. Your thoughts, Bill, from KE5ICX? 5 ICX.
W5BLT. I was going to wait on this one and let you all discuss it before I watched it. Just as someone who is totally blind, I thought, I'm going to wait. Sometimes these movies are confusing enough as it is. And so I thought, well, I'll wait and see. It is an interesting concept, and virtual reality has always been interesting to me, and also just the studies they've done on the brain and in some people who've had vision loss of electrodes and trying to simulate vision and things like that. So I'm fascinated about this whole topic. W5BLT.
Okay, well, very good, Bill, and we'll come back to you later. Well, I sense that this topic will be kind of interesting to everyone, whether it involves the movie or not. There's kind of a topic which really has kind of come into its own in recent years, particularly with computer virtual reality and all the things that go on there. I'll make some comments about that as well, because it's so closely tied to what's going on. So we'll come back to you, don't worry. NT5TM, Tony, your thoughts on the movie, or at least as much as you have seen of it. What do you and Aaron think about Nemephrenia? Maybe you can pronounce it better than me. The movie from 2018 about virtual reality. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, so far it's been rather hard to follow. I'm right at an hour into it, and it's been very challenging because Aaron's asking me questions about what's happening, and I can't answer them because I don't understand it. So I find the plot rather difficult. Until I heard you speaking earlier in the net, I was not even able to figure out how these people were related to one another. I'd kind of gotten the idea that maybe somebody was this guy's ancestor, but I wasn't really sure. So really, I'm at the point of an hour. This is not a learning from. It's all just a head scratcher of who are these people and what's going on. That's very slowly kind of coming together, but been very challenging for me. So I definitely don't have Nemephrenia. I can tell that this is a video and not reality, but I don't know. I'm going to try to stick it out and see if it all makes more sense by the end. NT5TM.
Okay, very good. There is a payoff at the end. KB9SOK, Sean, your thoughts on the plot from KE5ICX?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, the plot is as far as virtual reality. I do think it's interesting and where it could go. This movie obviously played on both sides of the pros and cons. Obviously with anything there can always be an addiction problem almost to one end to the other, and obviously this movie talks about that very, very thoroughly about how people could potentially get sucked into another world and not want to come back. So that was talked about very much. But then also, towards the end of the movie, they made very good, solid points of maybe, the benefits of it. Obviously, the ability to share experiences, be able to understand people from other cultures, other places, and truly understand how they feel. So once again, it's that balance of, how the tech is used, and once again, moderation, and those that can't do it in moderation. And then also there was a subplot about corporate greed in this as well. The company, knowing that there was potential issues, decided to go ahead and move forward and just throw warnings on it. Well, we see this a lot, obviously. Every new drug that comes out can cause anything from a sniffle to death. And they say all these things just to cover their butts, basically. And it's the same way with, we've seen it with cigarettes, we've seen it with, pretty much everything in California causes cancer, according to them. So yeah, it kind of, that was kind of a subplot there a little bit. Yes, I agree, the movie was confusing in places. It wasn't really towards the end that I started to put some of it together finally. and because I intentionally try to avoid reading the synopsis just because I want to go into a movie, hopefully free and come with my own opinions. But yeah, there was a couple things there you answered for me as well when you read it. So yeah, and it definitely explains after too how they put this movie together, because it felt very much like an indie film or maybe a student film, which can be good and bad. I kind of had mixed feelings on this one, to be honest. There was times I felt that it had a very, very, very slow pace, and there was times I was truly just getting bored with it, and I found myself a couple different times pausing it to see how much time's left, which is never a good sign. I've seen more interesting movies like this. The couple you already mentioned, Ready Player One was a virtual reality-based type show, which was very good, but didn't really dive too deep into the bad parts of it. But yeah, all in all, interesting. This one to me is just kind of a thumb sideways. I can't say that I really disliked it, but I didn't really love it either. It was a little too slow-paced for me, but it's an interesting topic for sure. Back to net control. This is KB9SOK.
All right, very good. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, we've had plenty of different examples of virtual reality and the methods that they use in the film. I'm going to hold my comments, of course, to the end, but I thought that this film actually tackled the virtual reality in a different way than I've ever seen in any other film. Next up is Kane, K5A&E. Kane, your thoughts on the plot for Nemo Freemia. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to pronounce that correctly, but anyway, go ahead, Kane, from KE5ICX.
Well, hello to the net. This is K5A&E. Yeah, this movie, gosh, the plot is just about as hard to follow as saying the name of the movie. It's jumping around between different characters and different kind of viewpoints, and even just like, I don't know, shooting a movie from a first-person perspective oftentimes is just a really tricky thing to get right. And they definitely made a good attempt at that, and but in the end, it was a really kind of hard movie to watch and really enjoying it into. But I do agree that it's a challenging thing to shoot the way it was, and the concept that they're trying to showcase of, all these different realities kind of getting mixed up in someone's head, and so that's almost like you're experiencing that, by watching the movie. You get lost into thinking about, okay, wait, so what's happening? Like, what world are we in right now? What time are we in? Like, what are we really seeing here? That's almost the confusion that the creators of this movie, I think, were trying to showcase. So, in one hand, it's like, well, it's not really done super well, but another way, it's like, well, that's almost exactly what they were trying to go for. Anyways, really complicated movie. In the end, I liked the concept of it. It was a hard thing to enjoy from a cinematic perspective. K5A&E, back to net.
All right, thank you, Kane. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Now, she understands the film perfectly, so she's going to explain it to us. So, Brenda, go ahead. Tell us what this movie was all about from KE5ICX.
This is WB5OZL. I don't know what you're talking about. I wouldn't say I hated the movie. In many ways, I enjoyed watching it. The visuals were stunning, beautiful scenery, and beautiful people, and a lot of close-ups. So it was kind of fun to watch, just because of because it was visually pleasing. What I don't like is when a person with at least average intelligence, like all of us, can't quite put their hands around the movie for a while. It's like, I don't understand it. I don't know what it's about. I can't follow it. Then I'm not sure the movie maker has done their job. And, their job is to communicate. And you shouldn't, I don't think you need to be so obscure. It's okay to do so for a while if you tie everything up and explain things, at least to some extent. But what's the point in making a movie if you can't effectively convey the idea you're trying to put across? Now, I think it's a fascinating concept that we're going to have to deal with more and more as our lives go on. Is it real or is it virtual? And even before computers, reality is kind of slippery to a lot of people. It's like the old story. You have a wreck in the middle of an intersection, have 4 witnesses on the 4 corners, and you ask them their eyewitness accounts, and you'll get 4 different versions because perception is really different for people, and they're all right, and they all can see it, and they know they're right. You just kind of can't explain why the perception is so different with all these people. So, reading the synopsis helps. For a long time, I did not understand the relationship of all these people. But one thing they were dead on about is the corporate greed. Those of us who have worked out in the world and corporations, we know all too well. It's like, okay, it works, ship it. Even though you know it doesn't work, they know it doesn't work. But they have a shipping date, and they are willing to go ahead and ship a product that is not working so they can meet their deadline. So that's what this company was doing, and we've all been there and lived through it. So I thought that was a good bit of social commentary. So I'll have more for later. This is WB50ZL.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Brenda. This is KE5ICX. We're talking about the movie Nemophrenia from 2018. So I'm going to go down to David, W5EBV. David, your thoughts on this film? Go ahead.
Well, thanks, Tom. Well, searching for this movie, I was saying to Alexa, Nemophrenia, which of course returned nothing. And then I just thought, okay, well, mnemonic. I just started saying mnemonic. But no matter how many times I said mnemonic, it always returned demonic. So we know Alexa's slant there. But I finally went to the Tubi app and just typed in MN, and bam, there it was. Now, there are other movies that were mentioned. Brainstorm, in particular, really comes to mind. The Douglas Trumbull special effects with Natalie Wood, and I think maybe her last movie. But that was pretty much almost identical to this, where you replay someone's experience, and not just their visuals, but the feeling, the sensation. But this movie, what do you call it? Nemophrenia, takes it a little further. You don't just experience or feel what they were feeling, but you almost become that person when you're replaying it. So that takes it another step, level up. Other movies that come to mind, obviously Blade Runner, with the memory implants that you don't really know. You have to know ahead of time that they're memory implants and not real. And Dark City, where every night, people's memories get completely wiped and rewritten, and they become a different person. And it's sort of a test. They're trying to find the essence of the soul in that movie, which is a very good movie. So Nemophrenia is a more intense experience of replaying someone's psyche, really, and their visuals and experience. But really, I don't think you need goggles to experience virtual reality. Just turn on the TV. Now, Nemophrenia is not a real word. Nemo is like remember, and phrenia is mental disorder, so it's trying to create a new word for a mental disorder and not remembering. But there are other related actual conditions like false memory syndrome and multiple personality disorder that this is kind of related to. But I thought the screenplay was okay, but it was comprised of intelligent dialogue, so I give them credit for that. Let's see, I won't talk about the music. But I was also, in the plot, kind of waiting impatiently for the resolution, the reveal, the trick to the movie. But I do give them credit for keeping the length of the movie to a reasonable, 1 hour and 15 minutes. W5EBB.
Okay, very good, David. Thank you. Does anybody else want to check in? The movie we're talking about is Pneumophenia from 2018. You don't necessarily have to have seen the movie, but if you would like to talk about virtual reality versus reality, that's what this thing is all about. So I'm going to open it up to anyone else who would like to join us before I give my comments on this first round. We're currently talking about the plot, but you don't necessarily have to have seen the movie. Anybody else want to check in? Please come with your call sign name. Did you see this film? Okay, hearing none. My comments on the film. I found the film interesting. Yes, it was confusing at the very beginning, and indeed you kind of have to have some, maybe some structure and read through some of the synopses that were given, only because some of that stuff wasn't absolutely obvious. But I'm going to, in defense of the film, I'm going to say there's a lot of films that we've seen through the years that become classics that don't tell you everything. We've already named several of them. Blade Runner was one, where you're plopped in a world that you were not familiar with. It was LA sort of, kind of, but not really. What the heck was going on there? Nobody knew. The androids or the replicants and that was one example. 2001: Space Odyssey. You weren't told or expected to completely comprehend everything that was going on. That one obviously would it caused considerable angst amongst the people that reviewed it, the critics, and then many of the audience, until finally they figured out what the heck it was, or at least tried to. I think mystery is a good thing. I don't think you should have to tell everybody everything on screen to your audience. I think that the audience is supposed to be a part of it. And I think it was Ridley Scott that said in one of his movies, he says, I'm not going to tell you everything. If I tell you everything, you're not going to invest time in the film. You need to be kind of strung along a little bit and to be a participant in the movie. Now, we all know that, movies are escapism, but I don't think every movie has to have the same exact formula. This one is one of those. You have to be up to the challenge to watch this film. Now, is it a great film? No, maybe not. But it's got a lot of very dense dialogue. It's got a lot of interesting concepts. So that's what I'm going to say, at least in defending the style of this film, as opposed to some of the more traditional ones we've seen. Now, the comments, some of the things. We know there's three kind of short stories going on. They were filmed at three different times with three different directors, but were intermixed or spliced together, I guess. I don't know what you do with video. I guess you I'll just say intersplice. I can't think of a better term, involving all these three stories. Really, it's kind of four, I guess, but three stories, let's say, about what's going on. And some of the things that are mentioned are quite fascinating. The idea that in a virtual reality would enhance your existence and giving you an opportunity to experience other people's existence is similar to what we talk about with television or movies or books or anything else along those lines, except in this case you're interacting. You're seeing and being a part of the conversation. Now, is that something that you could be addicted to? Yeah. I mean, I mentioned in the thing Second Life, which was, I think, came out about 10, 12 years ago. And 10 or 12 years ago, I got into it as a virtual reality, a Western town in 1887, I think it was. And I was quite enamored with the whole thing because the people playing the roles in that thing were doing their parts, and you got to know the people in the town, and you had a vested interest in them. Why? I don't know. I was on the road all the time. It was sort of a community at night that I could spend time with, which I thought was pretty cool. And they had an interest in history as I did, and they wanted to play it as authentically as they could. You reset. So those, you can have a vested interest. And I remember in that case, and I'm going to use this as an example to bolster the story here, is that there were characters that were so invested in their role playing that they kind of took on those personalities. There was an area they called the timeout area, which is essentially you could talk about the role play without role playing. And I remember going into the timeout area, and one of the major players was there, and he said he was pretty tired of what was going on because he was overwhelmed by certain playing aspects that he felt were unfair, but at the same time, he was so engaged in his role play that he didn't want to let it in. Is that a virtual reality, or is that a reality response? I mean, think about it. In the movie, they also talk about, the downside to it, such as the construct of, who was it, the guy on the boat. At any rate, the gal found that she fell in love with a character that had never even existed, had to be taken away from it. That's something that's really kind of possible, I suppose. We certainly get invested with characters that are in movies and television, particularly television, because they're ongoing characters. Soap operas are the same way, to the point where we take on some of their characteristics. I think those things play into it as well. And then lastly, the emotional feelings you're getting as they took the total cinema and took it to the next level. You get to feel what the characters feel as well, which is also explored in Brainstorm. A little more superficially, but even still, and that's Douglas Trumbull, who was, I think, one of the giants when it comes to cinema through the years, and having worked with Stanley Kubrick, he picked up some of the traits of Kubrick as well. So suggesting that, is it something to sell and make money off of? To gamble on people's emotions and their addiction to it? Is that ethical? No, it's not. And anybody who's ever spent any time on Facebook, and just about everybody has, your emotions are manipulated through algorithms that push material to you to get you to feel a certain way. The algorithm suggests that it's to get you to feel in a certain way that you want to feel, or does it? I don't know. Or is it forced to get you to go back over and over again and sing the salutations of something that you really enjoy, or argue with your best friend? It doesn't matter. It keeps getting you there, and that's the corporate greed part, which also comes out. And I think this film is also an allegory for Facebook and other on-air, or actually online type experiences. Because if you're not paying for it, you're the product. So eyes in this case. So I think it brings up a lot of these points, and I find that quite fascinating. Will I go back to see it again? Yeah, I probably will, because it's one of those films where you're confused the first time around. The second time, you kind of get an idea of what's going on. So you're going to be looking to see what you missed in the dialogue while you're busy thinking about what you were seeing. And you'll concentrate and redouble your efforts to get a better understanding of the film. And I know I'm long-winded on it. This is the probably going to be my longest thing on the entire film, is what I'm talking about now, because of the subject matter. But, it's not unlike one of the films I mentioned at the beginning of this was just that Blade Runner. When I first watched it, I wasn't sure what I was seeing, and quite honestly, I was so distracted by everything going on, I didn't glean a lot out of the storyline, and I didn't like the film. I really did not. I thought, oh man, this is Humphrey Bogart in the future past almost, and I thought it was kind of a rip-off. And then as I started to think about it, it started to gel a little bit, and I realized that there was more to the story. There was stylistic sensibilities to it that kind of mesmerized you, and it became this filmatic experience. And I thought, now that I understand it and what they're trying to do, I'll go back and watch it again. And each time I saw the film, I saw more to it. And even today when I watch that film, I still find little subtleties and things about it that are really fascinating. I don't know if this one's a great film like Blade Runner is to me, but I think it has the potential of being something greater than what we think it is, at least on a first viewing. So that was long-winded for me. I won't do that on the next round, but let's go ahead and see what happens next. We'll do the second round. We'll talk about characterization. I don't know how much we've got there, but we'll give it a shot. We'll start, first off, I'll ask for Bill if he has any comments at this point. Would he be interested in watching this film, W5BLT, or do you have any comments on anything on virtual reality? You're here, you deserve a seat at the table, so tell us what you think from KE5ICX.
K5ICX, W5BLT. The only comment I am interested in watching the film, and I know we're talking about characterization. My only comment would be virtuality. To me, is interesting because who controls that, and can somebody hack it? And that may be a discussion for at the end. But yeah, I'm very excited to watch it, and so appreciate everybody's comments thus far, and looking forward to more. W5BLT.
All right, Bill. Very good. Next is NT5TM. Tony, you're further in the film. What do you think?
We have finished it, and yes, there's a clear explanation. It even tells you in the credits what order the stories go in. And Aaron didn't see the very beginning, so but we did make it through. She did remind me of the movie Strange Days, which I think was Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Lewis some years ago. That was an interesting and strange movie about using other people's memories as a drug. She also was reminded of A Scanner Darkly, and she was a little perplexed, and heck, this was a blank space for me, but she was more articulate and emphatic about it, why some of the characters thought this was such a wonderful technology, like the FLM woman speaking to Nicholas. You could do great things. Well, what are those great things exactly? If in a world of total perspective, where everyone empathized with everyone else all the time, Aaron warned, how could you even take one step? You are the ant that you're about to step on. How can you move? Other than perhaps the little bit of the drug aspect of, I'm going to experience this part or this part that I think is really neat. The movie keeps alluding to what is this wonderful potential, but I don't understand what the wonderful potential is, and I think she was even more, what is this, what's this great, wonderful new horizon that we're missing here that they're not telling us what it is? Because, to Aaron, she said it actually seemed a little horrifying. So, the individual subplots were short. Purely as far as characters, at least they did a very good job of differentiating the characters from one another. I often couldn't keep their names straight, but I knew who they were. This is the guy who was in the orange shirt in the previous shot. That guy, and that's one of the beta testers. And I assigned them my own names, even if it took me quite a while to figure out what their in-world names were. And Aaron really does want to know what happened to Nicholas, since they clearly know that he is in league with the whatever the fish liberation movement or whatever FLM stands for, and was leaking secrets from the Weyland-Yutani Corporation to the aliens. So yeah, we don't get to find out. His story, I guess, had a little suspense. So the characters were strong. The movie was interesting. I can't at all say that I was entertained, but at least, much like reading someone's dissertation, I was intrigued. And I'll reset here one more time in case Erin wants me to get any final words of hers in. And she just adds that she thinks that total empathy with no barriers would be horrific. Anyway, it was interesting. NT5TM.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. And next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Your thoughts on characterization for Nemophrenia from 2018.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Excuse me there. Yeah, me too. I was also, just like Tony, wondered what happened to the guy after, obviously, they found out that he was in cahoots, well, was going to be in cahoots with the, whatever that organization was. And I thought they were going to come back and give us an answer to that, and they didn't. So I was a little disappointed in that as well. The characters, yeah, were very defined. I think for the most part, most of them were acted very well. I think obviously, I think the, the lady going through the, obviously that was dying was, she put a lot into it, and you really did, she acted it very well. And her husband, I felt, was a little bit, I don't know, it didn't seem legit. I don't know if it's just the way it was written or the way he acted it, but for me, it didn't feel like it was a real response. Even though you could tell, it looked like he was trying. And I think that's what kind of took me out of it for them. But, yeah, don't really have a lot unique to say here, because, yeah, it was very heavy dialogue. I do think for the most part it was acted well. And I think everybody's pretty well nailed the big points of this film. So I'll just go ahead and send it back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next up is Kane, K5ANE. Kane, your thought on characterization.
Yeah, so these characters were all kind of strange to me. Some of their motives and behaviors didn't always make a lot of sense to me. They didn't really seem very real or believable to me in the end. They kind of just did things just for the plot, and I don't know, a lot of the things that they did and thought weren't necessarily things that I would have done or thought. So, I don't know, it just, yeah, it was a really complicated kind of movie to try and follow, so it's kind of hard to really connect with and empathize with these characters. That's really all I think about the characters. This is K5ANE, back to Net.
Oh my, we're zipping through these characters really quick. So, okay, next up, WB5OZL. Miss Brenda, your thoughts on characterization?
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. The beginning was a little hard to tell them apart. And I didn't like that. But they all seemed really similar and not like real people at all. They didn't have the kind of lives we have with laundry and traffic and paying bills and mother-in-law calling and all the things that make up our lives. They just seem to kind of sit around and talk. And to me, that just sort of made them one-dimensional. And the scene where the woman is just rearranging all those plants, there were plants everywhere, like you've never seen, and just pointlessly rearranging the plants for no good reason. The decor in these places, I didn't understand the pictures with those little geometric symbols in them, and it looked like they lived in an IKEA store, frankly, and they're close. It was just to me, a real alien place. Just not like any place I've ever been before. They didn't have TVs, they didn't read, and or go out to eat, or do anything that make up the rest of our lives. I don't even remember seeing any vehicles, any cars. I guess it was fairly well cast. I don't know what else you could have done differently, but I didn't find them necessarily sympathetic, but not really unsympathetic either. To me, they were just a little too neutral in my mind. Okay, back to net. W. Pablo Zeto.
All right, next is David, W5EBB. David, you're very analytical when it comes to characterization. So what do you got for us on this one from KE5ICX?
Well, I admit I didn't put in my homework on this movie. It was just such a mismatch of characters, and horrifying is a good way to summarize it, because basically there's an abdication of uniqueness in a person's psyche. You know, they're giving theirs up in favor of someone else's from their ancestry, or someone famous, or some, you know, well-regarded person that will bring comfort and direct their lives in a way that they couldn't have done, or they would not have the opportunity to do otherwise. So and at the end, it really comes across, the movie does, as a promotional ad, embracing virtual reality and disparaging reality, paying tribute and homage to these, ancestral people who provided them their foundation, their essence, So people in this dystopia of a future would turn into a homogenized race of oneness with no personalities that are uniquely theirs. And everybody thinks the same way because they've all been conditioned with the same total cinema experience, with the same characters replayed. And, but frankly, in a decade or a few years from now, we may regard this movie as predictive. And the next normal may indeed be to live more in a virtual world versus the old normal, which was the real world. W5EBB.
All right, thank you, David. My comments on this, what is it? The Brian Greene thing that's been going, that he's written like 3 different books on string theory. And one of the things that he always brings to the front is that having to do with infinite number of universes. Now, where am I going with this? Well, the thing is that, one of the things that he says, and which could be disconcerting to all of us, is that we have no free will, that in the end we make every decision, which means we make no decisions as to what happens. In this universe, I decide to pick up the mail when I come home. In another universe, I decide to leave the mail in the mailbox overnight. Another one, I decide to go on a trip, and the mail sits there for a week, and on and on and on. It goes on forever. And it doesn't matter. The decision is made a bazillion different ways at a bazillion different times, meaning that there is nothing. In this case, we're stating that with the virtual reality, we put out this well-laid plan, and all the characters end up being the same. I don't know. Perhaps that's what that's trying to say, and I think, though, there's enough to say when we watch a film that it affects us, and I know that for a fact, and I was talking to some of the guys at work because I'm reading Omar Bradley's A Soldier's Story, which is about the famed general who, by the way, the book was the source for the movie Patton. And that movie, when you look at it and you watch it, and when you read the book and you read through it, there are multiple points of view of the same people, Patton being one of them. And a person comes away from that movie, that show, that 2-hour and 20-minute movie, and the character is looked upon by different people with different experiences, and it redoubles their belief or patriotism or interest or deductions, and you can have two people look at it and see it from completely different points of view and be inspired. So I don't know. It's curious. I don't know. Would VR do that? Would everybody become just a mental case after this is all said and done, or would they be inspired, or would they suddenly come to a realization or an understanding? Could, for example, if you were to take a brilliant scientist and you watched his methodology and scientific study, and you saw it in the first person, you felt what he was doing, or she. I shouldn't assign a gender. I'm kind of thinking of Thomas Edison, even though he's kind of jerky. But it could be anybody, whoever it might be, a brilliant scientist. And you observe, or you are a part of, in virtual reality, that deductive, inductive process. Suddenly you've learned a new skill. And you're bolstered by the fact that this person was successful at what they did. Would that VR actually be reductive, or would it be expansive and understandable? I think that's kind of where this thing is going to a certain extent, is that it, if used correctly, can be mind-opening, like I suppose LSD was supposed to be and never came through. Or it can be dangerous and destructive, as we found in those first stories. But in the end, it suggests that it's a positive thing going forward. I guess pick one. But I think it opens many different questions in ways that are not derivative. Let me reset. When we see the one part it does is, of course, the corporate greed thing, and our character walks off with the headset as the overlays show to go with that group. What is it, SLM group, and do better things, I suppose. But the most of it has to do with the interpersonal relationships. Everybody says, well, we said there's no vehicles. There's nothing there that it. Well, when you're watching a stage play, there isn't a vehicle on stage. There isn't any of that. There's no television. It's a one-on-one. You can't physically do that. And in this case, she's deliberately limiting the story so that it focuses on the characters directly. Whether you found that the focus was good or bad, that's up to you to decide. But you're forced into that it is what's on the stage in first person with all three storylines. And that's fine. That's done many times. So, character-wise, did they deliver? Yeah, I think so. Was there monotony with it? Yeah, there was that too. Was there a lot to glean from the dense conversation that we had? Absolutely. Did we decode it all? No. So I think that in the end you're going to have to go back and watch it a few more times, and people are saying, no, I'm not watching that film ever again. Now, if you want to see a similar experience, I've mentioned this film before on other nets, go watch My Dinner with Andre. Watch it once and then hate it. Then go back in 2 months and watch it again, and you'll love it. For different reasons, obviously, because it has a tendency to impress upon you. Very interesting. Kind of a heart of darkness moment as well. Okay, let me see. Are there additional check-ins at this point? Anybody who'd like to come in and weigh in on virtual reality and technology, or have seen the movie Nemrophrenia from 2018? Please come with your call. We'll go third round. We'll just go down the list, and we'll do the technology part. There wasn't super high tech in this, but there was some tech. So maybe this would be something of interest to discuss. Also music, if you want to do that. I think somebody said they had something on music. So I'm not going to pick on poor Bill. I've done this to him a number of times. Since we're going on actual technical effects here, I'm going to skip him for now, but Bill, I'm going to leave you an opportunity to say something at the end if you'd like. So we'll go to Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on special effects, music, photography, you name it. What do you got for us?
The photography was adequate, I suppose. I did like Brenda's comment about the IKEA future because, yes, it's hard to show futuristic stuff because it's always wrong. When they thought that in the future cars will just have even bigger tail fins. The tail fins will be 10 feet tall. It's hard to do that. So the music took some getting used to. At first, I just found it either insufficient or annoying, depending on whether it was there or not. I gradually did get used to that. I did want to pass on one more comment from Erin, that she was really worried that in the far future, who's making news stories? She was very horrified that most people would simply become drooling virtual reality addicts, just completely living through other people, and she thought that was very scary. So, no real effects except the one that Erin really liked and got more out of than I did. She really liked in the, I guess the middle one with the Total Cinema people, all the little annotations and things that were happening on the side of the screen. If we watch it again, she's going to make more of an effort to keep up with all of those because she quite liked that little effect. Thought it was interesting and added something to it. NT5TM.
Very good. I agree with her too because I was watching that during the dialogue. It's difficult to follow dialogue and then look at technical readouts, but yeah, you could watch the inflections and the things that were going on, strain voices, identification, background stuff. It was kind of cool in a way. I rather enjoyed that, so I'll speak out of turn on that one. KB9SOK, Sean, your thoughts on music, special effects, lighting, photography, you name it, whatever you want to say about it, it's your turn.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Yes, I agree with the group so far that, the most interesting technical part of it, or special effects, was, yes, the graphics on the side showing what the computer was analyzing as he was with the headset on his head. A lot of it is brain waves and what have you. And at one point, I was tempted to pause and take a better look at it myself, but then yeah, that was probably really the biggest special effect. And yes, the music, I did find it not that good particularly. So I didn't care for that. As far as the way it was filmed, I guess it was okay. Once again, it had that indie kind of feel. It's the first person thing. Yes, the plant scene was boring and annoying. Once again, I think they was just shown some monotony, I guess, of just needing time to herself to think, but yeah, that was a bit overdone, and yeah, too, I thought their house was definitely IKEA, the giant baggy pants, and it was weird, but yeah, that's that. So yeah, I guess one final thought on it, is more the conclusion. It's just once again, it's like anything in technology. There's definitely bad things that could be done with this. People getting lost in somebody else's life and not really living their own, which was mentioned in the movie. And what kind of life is that really? But then there's other sides of it. Obviously, there's probably a lot that could be learned. People going through things. Doctors could use it to maybe have a better understanding of what the person's really feeling than them trying to describe it to him. Or even, for instance, a doctor using it, this could be used for training. You could watch a brilliant surgeon and see what he did and know what, what it should feel like. And to Tom's point earlier, there could be, there's definitely, I think, some use of sport, but then also, too, it could lead to a very disconnected future, even though the point is trying to connect. So yeah, that's really about all I got on this. Will I watch it again? I don't think I will, but I do get your point on a lot of movies that sometimes you do get a lot more out the second time around. Maybe if I'm super bored one day, I'll give this one another shot. But all in all, it's just okay. It's a great topic, but maybe not the best film. Back to Net Control. This is KB9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean, and you gave me an idea. I'd put some notes down on something you said. I'll come back to it when it's my turn. Next up is Kane, K5A&E. Kane, your thoughts on anything you want, special effects, music, any of the technical aspects of the film, or something we didn't cover. You can do that, too. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
So we see this VR technology as something that's, far off in the future as far as people having some way of connecting into other people's realities and absorbing them as their own, and people getting caught up in these distant, fake realities. And, we think of it as something that, we might need some kind of future technology that's, science fiction to have happen. But if you really think about it, even today in our modern times, we have lots of people in today's society that are, infatuated, obsessed, continue on living and imagining, all these fake, quote-unquote, experiences. People that are, obsessed with sports or things like that, they end up, people can get way over obsessed on certain topics and kind of lose sight of their own lives and their own realities. And it's an interesting concept to then think about, to expose into science fiction so it's disconnected from the current, modern issues and problems. It's one of the nice things with science fiction is being able to take an existing issue that we have in society and kind of detangle it from some of the thorniness of reality and kind of think about those same kind of problems in a different light. 1 second, let me reset. So I think it's overall a good idea for us to remember to disconnect from things that aren't necessarily us, that aren't necessarily our lives, and making sure that we focus on us, ourselves, and the ones that we care about. So that's kind of what I take away from this movie. This is K5A&E, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Kane. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Your thoughts on the technical aspects of the film, music, lighting, anything you want. In fact, you can pick and choose whatever you want from KE5ICX.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. Well, I think movies like this, what appeals to us is it talks about our favorite subject, us. Most of us are just fascinated with the human mind and the human condition and what we are like and what we are about. And there's an enormous curiosity about the brain, which we understand so little of right now. I don't think I want to poke around anybody else's brain, nor vice versa. And if we did, would you ever again have intellectual property? And if you invented something, could you keep it if somebody was tapping into you? And, you know, how would you prove it? Or would you like to tap into a composer and see the music as it happens? Although that might be an extremely enlightening experience to do that. And even just, you know, sitting here, a lot of what goes on in your brain is not real. You're going through I should have said, or where would I like to go on vacation, or where I wanted. You're fantasizing a lot and playing things out of your mind that are not real at all. Those aren't memories. It can happen, but it plays out in your mind very clearly, and most of us know the difference. But would somebody else that's sharing your mind understand that those are your fantasies or daydreams or imaginings? Something I've thought about which interests me is there had to have been a time in prehistory where cavemen are sitting around and a guy's talking about his trying to communicate about his hunt, and he explains how he shot the whatever it was, or shot with an arrow, and he's telling this thing that actually happened. And, you know, everybody's impressed. Who was the first guy that made up a fictional story? And did somebody jump up and say, hey, that didn't happen? You know, you made that up. But we love our stories. All of us watch imaginary things all the time. And very often it's hard to convince us that these beloved fictional characters are not real because they're so vivid and they're so real to us. I mean, sure, we know logically, but there's an enormous attraction for our fictional characters, and I don't know where they came from in our evolution, but it is very compelling. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. Next up is David, W5EBB. David, your thoughts on, well, anything you want, really. You can discuss the special effects, music, lighting, whatever you want. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Well, people were talking about the IKEA, and it seems like we're going to live a torturous interior design phase in the future where we're bombarded with only pastels in our environment. But the graphic overlays, I think, were the main technical feature, special effect of the movie, and it was done well. The real-time analysis, the whole Internet of Things, Big Brother, and but it makes you wonder who's looking at this data and who's actually interested, who's purchased it, I guess. But I too, while I was watching it, I would freeze frame to read what the overlay said and then continue the movie. But I actually like the movie, or like the music in the movie. Usually I'm an old curmudgeon when it comes to this. Give me Johnny Williams. Yeah, I'm on familiar terms like that. Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner even. But, only one of those guys is still alive. But I like the music in this movie because it was appropriate to the overall tone, I thought, of the movie. The composer, I think, made use of wave shaping and morphing of acoustic instruments with other sound, and made use of exotic sound effects to make it sound almost familiar but a little off. And that pretty much mirrored what we were seeing in the movie. It wasn't quite right. It wasn't quite real. It was somewhat synthetic, and that mirrored what we were seeing. W5EBB.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. Well, my comments on this is I think everybody said what they needed to say that I would have said. One of the things I would just respond to some of the comments is one was, you asked who would look at all this data? What would they do with it? Well, here's the thing, is that we've collected tons and tons of data through the years as well. I remember, in fact, N5BB, if he were here, he would remember they had a guy at one of the meetings for National Space Society. He's a fellow that worked out of right in Dallas University, who had collected all of the data from some of the Gemini and Apollo missions, and they were all on tape, 16-track tape. They had no way of reading it until finally they did. And they had all of the audio and data, mostly audio, but they also had data tapes and everything else. Can you use that stuff? I don't know. You got computers now. You can profile stuff. I'm sure it'll help to be able to know what people were thinking when landing on the moon, because they'll think about landing on the moon here in the very near future, because we were going back. All that stuff would have been lost otherwise. Was it valuable then? Well, after you landed on the moon, it wasn't. Is it valuable now? Well, before you land on the moon, it is. So suddenly it becomes something worthwhile, and the technology allows you to take and morph it into something more meaningful. And I suspect something like that might happen. Let's see here. What else? Interaction with people. Somebody made a comment on that. We've already lived through that. A lot of us are part of the TV generation. I'm certainly one of those. You spend a lot of time. Yeah, I'm supposed to be outside playing with my playmates at school when I was in grade school. I did. And I started watching television and found television to be really cool. And now I live at home and there is television. Now I do reading and things like that, of course, because I enjoy that. But do I know my neighbors' names? Yeah, I know the guy over on the south side of the house here, but I don't know the guy's name on the north side of the house. But I know who Carl Sagan is, even though he's been dead for, 20 years. And I know, some famous people. I know a lot about them, at least from what they're willing to, tell me about them. And I know about people I've never met. In fact, people probably on this net. So, the technology is an enabler, and it also distracts and prevents. It creates obstacles. So how does that all work out in the end? I don't know. It depends on the technology, it depends on the person, it depends on how it impacts society, both specifically and generally. So I think that's, again, one of those fascinating things, and I think that's one of the many things that this film brings up. Okay, and I wrote down empathy and sympathy, but I can't remember what the context was, so I can't tell you. I didn't write enough notes. Okay, I'll open it up. Anybody have any final comments on anything they want to say? And Bill, you're included in this W5BLT. If you want to say something, just throw your call out there. Any of the rest of you, same thing. Just give me your call and we'll go down the list. Any comments you want to make, please give your call.
November 5, India, Mike Sierra.
Well, that's N5 IMS. That's JJ over in Carrollton, I think. JJ, I didn't know you were going to check in this evening. Glad you're here. What do you got for us?
Well, I did not watch the flick, and actually I missed 3/4 of the net because I was busy doing other stuff. But some of the comments I heard got my mind thinking on something about basically living in a holographic environment and stuff, and just wanted to mention that I believe Star Trek had an episode where they had somebody who was addicted to the holodeck, and they had to wean him off of the holodeck, and something like that. I'm not 100% certain that I've got the right show and what have you, but I believe that even Star Trek had something on that thing. Just wanted to bring that up. N5IMS, back to net.
I can even name that episode. It was called Hollow Pursuits, and it was with Reginald Barclay, a B character that would show up from time to time on the show. And yes, he had objectified all of the characters in different ways and manipulated them to the nth degree. And it was a really good episode. That was one of the more interesting and somewhat comical but scary at the same time episodes. But yeah, it was a good one. Okay, well, I guess we're going to call it done. Not bad, 11:52. We started a little late, but not by much, so we ended up doing almost 90 minutes like we always do. So next week's movie is actually a pilot for a television series from 1977 called The Fantastic Journey, produced by Bruce Lansbury. And believe it or not, written by, amongst many different people, but at the very top of the list, it was one of the series creators, D.C. Fontana, Dorothy Fontana of Star Trek fame. I will send out all the usual notes. If you want to be on the list for the links and future movies, just send an email to me, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray at yahoo.com. Let me know that you want to be on the list. Or go to the Facebook page, which is Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow and Movie. And just sign up there. I'll make sure that you are added to that list as well. It'll give you a list of movies. So, Fantastic Journey next week. And then after that, the following week will be Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, which I'm looking forward to. I discovered it as being available for free online, and I enjoyed the movie. It's a fun one, but first we have to see Fantastic Journey. So I'm going to say 7-3 to everybody. It was a good net. I enjoyed it very much, and we'll see you here next week. This is KE5ICX, and I am clear.